Well, agentic AI is different from where we've been the last couple of years with generative AI, because generative AI, you could think of that capability as an assistant to a human, can help provide information. But the big step forward that agentic AI brings on top of generative AI is it can take action for you. So instead of being a helper, it can be a doer. It can actually execute the ideas that it recommends. Agentic AI actually has a wide range of applications, from human knowledge workers all the way towards managing robotics, humanoid or otherwise, in a factory. I think the key difference that makes agentic AI different from what we've historically understood to be automation is agentic AI can actually take nebulous information, realize what it needs in order to make a decision, and either acquire that information or reason on its own to identify, based on the information it does have, what is the next best action. Automation in our prior lives and prior worlds, though, by contrast, it required a series of if-then statements. You had to be very prescriptive about the automation, and if the ifs fell out to the else, then nothing happened. But agentic AI has the ability to think through and ask itself, what do I have, what do I need, and what can I do with it? An example outside of our factories, let's just talk retail for a minute. Most folks have purchased something through an e-commerce site, and many folks have had to return that, either because they bought a shirt or a pair of shoes that were the wrong size, or in a worst case, the wrong thing arrived and you need to return it. Well, it's not uncommon for retailers to have a very specific set of rules or policies that have to be met before it will actually be willing to accept your return. Some companies who maybe see a high volume from single buyer return might have a limit on the number of orders that you can return in a given year. Or there may be certain purchase restrictions. There might be some items that are not returnable, right? And so in an automated, in the old world way, what we might see is a series of steps on a website that says, I need the following information, at which point I can accept your return. And if and only if you have that information, can your return actually be processed. If you have an off to the side case, you might have to call in a human. Well, bring agentics into the world, and the agent can actually assess what information the customer provides, can look up in that customer's profile history, how many returns have you had, and are you under policy? And then make decisions all along the way on if, when, and how to accept and or process that return. The way it applies to manufacturing can take a number of different perspectives. So let's just talk not shop floor to start with. Some of the functional areas, maybe it's in legal or finance or other places, or maybe it's even in your invoicing and other supply chain opportunities. What Agentics can do for you is it can look at the circumstances in the moment, not just a series or a rubric to follow, and make assumptions that it can validate from a human. It can make decisions that it may or may not need to validate from a human, and then it can actually take action in the systems of record to execute against the logic flow that it came up with. So that's back office. Let's talk about on the factory floor. You know, we're about to see, if last year was all about Gen AI, the last 2 years, and this year is all about Agentics. I anticipate that in 2026 and beyond, it's going to be about robotics and the application of Gen AI and agentic logic and automation to robotics in the factory floor. This will give robots the ability to make real-time decisions based on what is around them. It may also be able to identify not just defects that it's seen before, but identify out of normal or out of spec circumstances, even if it's never seen it before. So there are a whole host of new efficiencies and new opportunities that Agentics plus Gen AI plus robotics can enable on the factory floor. What we think about often when we talk about multimodal agents is we're actually talking about systems of agents. So there are agents that have very specific tasks and they're trained on very specific data sets and information. And they can reason through or logic out a specific type of problem. But on the factory floor, especially in manufacturing, it's not just a series of individual, the same task over and over again. So oftentimes what we'll be able to design are agents that are task specific, but then there is an orchestrator agent that helps bring the entire process together. It recognizes when it needs to call what type of agent to step in and help solve the problem, and then can bring the solution together and either implement it if it's so deemed able to do, or present it for human review, approval, and then on its way to execution. We often recommend when you're branching for the first time into Agentics, if you haven't already engaged in a robust generative AI program, that you bring those two together, right? Because there's a lot of learning and training that you need to do about your data to make sure that it is AI and Agentics ready. Just having data does not mean that it is AI and Agentics ready data. So the first step is to do an assessment of what processes and what data that support those processes are in fact AI and Agentics ready. I love that you brought up explainability as a source of trust. I think that's going to be foundational to the way that we operate and bring AI Agentics to the manufacturing shop floor for sure. Because there are safety issues involved, because there are real dollars if production goes down, right? So trust is much more easily explained if you can break a problem down into smaller bits, just like you described, Steve. So think about back when you were in math class. Did you learn how to do complex algebra? No, you learned how to do addition and subtraction and multiplication and division, and then and that was all with numbers. And then you introduced the concept of a letter X, and what does letter X represent? It's no different with Agentics and trust. The more we can break problems down into smaller, digestible, understandable, and relatable problems that then get orchestrated by a higher order agent, the more trusted and decomposable and frankly traceable we can make when we get either answers we don't expect as part of the testing and development process, or auditability is a really important concept. And so being able to audit on a regular basis the decisions that were made when and by what agent, having that decomposability just makes it that much easier. Definitely robotics is coming, and there are plenty of companies out there that are really making great progress in humanoid robotics that add, I think, the most flexibility to be able to handle job tasks on the shop floor. But that's not the only option for manufacturers to bring robotics that take advantage of AI and agentics to the shop floor. So there are plenty of areas where you can limit the problem space or the task that your robots and agent-based robots need to control that are ready and deployable today. This is a real thing today. Another real opportunity that I anticipate will continue to grow in its ubiquity is the way that we manage warehouses and distribution centers, so especially warehouses. Today, historically, warehouses locations for material has been very fixed and very static. But we're getting to a point where now, overnight, robots can completely reorganize your warehouse to be prepared for what needs to go out tomorrow, next week, or even in the next hour. So being much more flexible in the way that we manage warehouses, distribution centers, and frankly, even factory floors is very much within striking distance for the next 2-3 years. I do think that we are closer than ever, if I put my future hat on, I think we are closer than ever to a world where lights out manufacturing is not just something we write papers and create websites around, but it's a very real possibility with the development of agentics and robotics coming together in the future. Please don't wait. If you have not already started down your AI journey, that train has left the station, and now not only are we beyond traditional AI, and now we're beyond generative AI, we're now well towards the depot of Agentics AI. Now is the time, and frankly, this is the time to be the most excited about AI and what it can actually do for your business, because AI can now take action in the form of agents.